in Texas. Now, the only time I was in Texas was driving through it on a Greyhound bus. So I land in Houston and they're like, your flight is going to be under an hour. It was like 30 minutes. So I'm like, forget flying a plane. I call Larry, like, hey, Larry, why don't you just come pick me up, man? It's only a 30-minute flight. This makes no sense. Having no clue it's a 4-hour drive.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
I know
Oh
Texas
yeah.
is big, man.
It
Because to
is.
me,
It
that would be
is.
like, taking a plane from Brooklyn to get to the Bronx.
Yeah.
That's
Or you're a
crazy.
helicopter. I mean, that's New York, right? You just
Yeah.
helicopter
E-
there.
exactly.
All
Exactly.
right. And five, four. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Something Something podcast. My name is Eric Kasloff, and with me, as always, is Larry Sands. How's it going, Larry?
Everything is good, Eric. Everything is kosher, I should say. So yeah, no, everything is good. Um, so what do you want to say anything before we start talking about like what's going on with Hillsborough Road?
Yeah, we had a fantastic thing yesterday. We're recording this on September 23rd. On September 22nd, we watched a movie with our composer, Brooks, and we gave him notes. So he's going to start doing the music soon. And what is it now, a 30-year journey of getting this movie made is going to be done soon, man.
I know you're in the this is the final throes for people that are in the film side of things. It takes a while, but I think anything creative
And
takes
it
a
was
while.
making me think how when you're the writer, director of something, it takes a while for your next gig to come along. But when you're an actor, you can go boom, 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 back to back from gigs. I remember doing a short, and one of our actresses, the young lady, as soon as she wrapped with us, she was driving to her next thing. And I'll admit, I
Right,
felt a little betrayed. Like, what? You're
right.
doing
Yeah,
another movie? You're cheating on me? This
I
isn't
know.
right. I thought we had
It's
something.
it's strange. It's very strange. But I mean, when you're behind the camera, obviously you have to live with it until it gets finished. And I mean, you edit it, you go through it, and I mean, we had hours and we have days of footage, right, that we
Yeah.
had to go through. So,
And it was
I
just
mean,
crazy for me. I mean, I wrote it. It took me a little over a year to get it right, which is
yeah,
kind of long for me because I always outline, but it's set in the 80s that it wasn't going to be set in the 80s, and
yeah,
everything just kept changing till we got it done. I want to get into our guests. One thing I always
yeah.
talk about, openly is I have a learning disorder. I was
Hmm.
a special ed kid because I have neurofibromatosis, and part of that is a learning disorder.
Hmm.
Till today, I have problems spelling, reading sometimes. I
Hmm.
pay $30 a month to have Grammarly to make sure my spelling's right when I send it.
Yeah,
So I've
yep,
always
yep.
had a heart for people with learning disorders, and our guest today is tackling one of them head on. Tell everybody about our guest, Larry.
Yes, this episode, I would like to welcome um, Rebecca Bush. Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
Hey, Larry. Hey, Eric.
Thanks so much
Uh,
for coming
you know,
on.
yes, thank you very much. You have a brand new book. It's called Dyslexia and Your Newly Diagnosed Child. And it's parenting essentials, tips, and strategies to help your child. And I know that you're a teacher, but really you've been working in the field of because I was reading a little bit of your bio on your website. And tell us a little bit about your background and and what led you to writing this book?
Yeah, so I am a teacher. I'm also what's called an academic language therapist. It's also called a dyslexia therapist. So if we go back in time, probably more years than I care to admit, I was a classroom teacher. So I taught, K through third grade, those years where we're learning to read. And I just kept seeing these kids that were struggling, and I didn't know what to do about it. And so I'm not one to sit with the problem. So I just kept learning. And so two master's degrees and a specialist program later, I now have all of these letters after my name. And
Right.
and I've been running a private practice, working originally just with kids, but I've expanded to parents because the kid needs support, but so do the parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think you realize, or I think people don't necessarily realize, because I know, Eric, you've worked with kids, and
Yeah.
we've all kind of worked with kids, and when they're just learning, and when they're littler, even into like the early teenage years, I mean, those are the quite important years to be able to give a child the skills that they need, but not only that, it's the confidence that they need to become who they really want to be, I think, right?
Yeah. I mean, technology is helping, obviously, but we live in a world where we have to read. And what we see again and again, and it doesn't matter if the kid is 4 or if the kid is 14, and when they're falling behind with reading, they know, right? They're smart
Mhm.
kids. They're not dummies. That's not what dyslexia is. They see the difference. And all of these coping strategies come in place. They're trying to hide, they're trying to be the clown, they're trying to do something to distract everyone else from the fact that they're struggling.
You
And
just
then
described me in school to a T.
Mm.
yeah. I mean, and that's what happens. And like you were saying, Larry, is that confidence. And that's where we get into the whole emotional piece that comes with these diagnoses, not only for the kiddo, but for the whole family. I mean, there's a lot. But if we start early, we can keep the train on the tracks from the very beginning.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that a lot of it too, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of parents don't realize maybe that that they could be that little gas that helps that engine to help their child. But I think if the parent doesn't realize how to, you know what, actually I should ask you this. When there's a learning disability, when there's a dyslexia, something like that, um, how hard is it for the parent to accept something like that, first and foremost?
That's a great question, and it really depends on the family. It also depends on the culture. I've worked actually in 3 different continents, so I've worked with families from all different countries, all different cultures. I will say it's improving big time. Just in the time I've started my practice, even from 2018, I've seen a big improvement in just our understanding of what these things are. And that
Mm,
it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means that you need to
yes.
be taught in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's where that on the parent side, it's totally normal to feel the guilt, to feel the shame, to feel all of these things that kick in, but none of it's your fault. You've done everything you can to help your kiddo. So you just got to take a deep breath and make your plan to move forward.
Wow. Wow. I think and Eric, please jump in. I have all these questions because it's so interesting, because you really get to see like all walks of life and different cultures, because it really comes down, maybe possibly, to how parents were raised and how they raise their children, and how do you help the parents cope and come to realize, because I'm sure they're filled with anxiety. I'm sure it's a little emotional for them. How do you deal with that? And is that like the most basic, not the basic, but is that like the starting point to help them realize that they can also be a driver in helping children?
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, you're spot on that moving past some of that emotional piece is going to be the beginning of our journey. So, the first thing that I walk parents through is just understanding what is dyslexia? What does this mean for your kid? All of the busting all the myths, all the things that I wish would disappear. And then the next piece is that emotional impact. So, not only for the child, but for you as a parent. And what's really interesting when I've been working with so many parents is there's a pretty strong genetic link for dyslexia and other learning
Really?
differences. Yeah. But for dyslexia, we actually think if the parent has it, there's about a 50-50 chance that the kid does.
Wow.
Yeah, super
Wow.
strong. Yeah. And so, but a lot of adults, that I work, the parents that I work with, a lot of times they were never diagnosed. So when their kid gets diagnosed and we start these conversations, it's like this giant light bulb moment for them because they look back. I mean, just like you were saying, Eric, they look back when they were in school and they're like, man, that was me, right? And this
Mm.
massive amount of self-awareness and understanding and just self-compassion that comes out of that understanding too. I mean, it's an emotional moment for everyone when we walk through these big conversations.
I was
I can
waiting to
tell.
ask this question because of where the conversation's going, and my heart immediately goes to kids. Like Larry said, I worked in children's ministry and youth ministry for years. My question is this: when a kid learns that they have dyslexia, I know when I found out I had a learning disorder, it completely changed my outlook on me. Again, I couldn't read for fun till I was about 14. I just couldn't do it. When a kid learns that, is there a weight taken off of them? Because I hate to say this, they realize they're not dumb. They're just running a different race than most kids.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I say it all the time, you're not dumb, you're not lazy, right? There's nothing wrong with you. And actually, some of the coolest moments is when families come and share with me what happens when their kids have that understanding and they go into the class and they're self-advocating. Like this one mom, she was like, I gotta tell you this moment. She's like, my kid, the teacher called me and he said that he came in and she asked him to do this thing and he was like, I'm sorry, Miss Smith, I can't do that very well. I have dyslexia. Do you mind if I do this instead? I was
Oh,
like, way to go, kiddo. That's exactly what you want you to say.
wow. Talk
Yeah.
about bravery.
Yeah. And that was
Holy
a 10-year-old, right? I mean, so if we can get a
wow.
10-year-old to be self-advocating to that capacity, I mean, imagine how the rest of their life's going to be.
Yeah.
I'm not shocked, but I'm shocked because when you have a self-realization
Excuse me.
of of that you can control the way people see you and how they communicate with you. And my gosh, I'm getting like the chills all over because that's very beautiful and that's very wonderful because I mean, and I think that is something, we can say what we want about technology, but when it helps, it absolutely helps. And my mind is kind of boggled right now because the concept of knowing who you are and standing up and actually advocating for yourself in that way just puts a whole new confidence level of knowing how you operate and how you would like people to communicate with you. I think that's a, a beautiful and amazing thing. What are some of the myths that you want to, let's just hit them head on because I think this platform that you have and the knowledge that you have, I think is now as a good as time as any is start breaking those myths down.
And
I
also,
love
while we're
that.
discussing the myths, before that, just in case, I know people have probably heard of dyslexia, but they might not know exactly what it is. In a
Yeah.
broad sense, please explain what it is.
Yes.
So dyslexia is a learning difference. It means your brain is wired differently. And because of that difference, you're going to have a hard time learning to read individual words. There's knock-on effects to that. So spelling, understanding what you're reading, writing, all of those things is like dominoes that can fall. But at its core, the way your brain reads is different. So that's what dyslexia is. It's word level reading.
Okay, thank you.
And
Now,
what are
now I
what
understand.
are
What are some of the myths?
Yeah. The first one, I mean, like I said before, you're not dumb and you're not lazy. And in fact, I can guarantee that a kid with dyslexia is working way harder than anybody else in that class to get the same results. So those are the two big ones. The other one that just doesn't seem to go away is that dyslexia has to do with vision. It has nothing to do with how you see. So this idea of letters swimming on the page or reversing letters, there's those can be a symptom of it, and there's underlying reasons with the whole brain wiring thing that I could be super nerdy and go into and explain, but it has nothing to do with how you see the letters. So you're not dumb, you're not stupid, and has nothing to do with vision.
hmm.
Hmm.
And so is it like you were saying, and did I hear you right, that it all has to do with wiring in your brain?
Yeah, so what happens, so in English, you can see, well, your listeners can't see, but there's an alphabet on the wall behind me, right? So all of
Yes.
those letters combine to make individual sounds. So if we think about just the sounds in language, we have 44 individual sounds. We hear those sounds, and that's what makes words, and then we connect those sounds to letters, and that's what helps us read and write. But if we go all the way back to the beginning, it's the individual sounds. And so there's a part of the brain that processes the sounds in language that is kind of the underlying piece to speaking, listening, reading, and writing. That doesn't work as strongly as we might expect it to for somebody with dyslexia. So when I go to read, so really when we read, whether you're a strong reader or not, we're actually using what's called a pathway. So there's a bunch of different parts of the brain that kind of work together like a symphony. They sort of light up and dance together, and that's how we read. But I mean, imagine a symphony, and if your key violinist, is out that day, right, your symphony is going to struggle. That's exactly what's happening with reading and dyslexia.
Wow. Wow. And it's very true that like everything in life, like our body and nature, everything is connected. So if one thing doesn't or isn't functioning properly, it kind of affects everything else, it sounds like. And obviously our brain is it first of all, it's amazing. And you did an excellent job
Yeah.
in explaining everything about the brain and the wiring. And is there a way, because I mean, I've watched the Science Channel, I've watched Discovery a little bit, and is it I don't know, is it true, I guess? Can you rewire your brain to add back in that missing violinist?
Yes, you can,
Wh-
which is
What?
super cool. Yeah. Um, so that's where, and especially, so a couple things to that. One, the earlier we start, the easier it is, right? We've got neuroplasticity. Even as adults, our brains are malleable, but we have the most neuroplasticity until between the ages of 5 to 7 is when we kind of start to lose some of that. So if we can start
Mm.
before then, it's way easier, but we can. So what we do with dyslexia intervention, Orton Gillingham, multisensory structured literacy, it's got all these different names, but we're basically taking multiple parts of the brain and wiring them together. So we're going to make the sound, we're going to move the sound, we're going to hear the sound, we're going to see the letter. All of those pieces are going to be so strongly wired together that you're basically going to have all of your like pitch hitters to support that part of the brain that's not as strong as we want, right? And so when we do that, that part just keeps getting stronger, and all the other connections are so strong that we really are rewiring the brain. So we're not going to make dyslexia go away because it's lifelong, it's neurobiological, all that stuff, but we can significantly diminish its impact over the course of your life with early intervention.
Wow.
Yeah.
What, how cool is it to be in your position and to know all these cool things and that people I think don't normally think about or know.
Yeah.
What is that like for you?
I love it. I mean, and that's why like I get so nerdy about this stuff. I mean, I just love
Yeah.
talking about it. I wish, and that's part of my huge mission. I just want the whole world to know this stuff because if parents know it, if teachers know it, if we all have this bigger understanding of not only dyslexia, but any learning difference or neurodiversity, just imagine how much more empowered our kiddos would be, how much more effective our instruction would be, right? Like we don't need to let them fail. We can help them out from the very beginning.
And I think,
Wow.
excuse me, we are starting to see that a lot more when it comes to people on the spectrum and also with dyslexia. I will admit, whenever I hear the word dyslexia, my mind immediately goes, I'm Bella Thorne and I have dyslexia, and I go into the video she did for Disney Channel about having it. And that we are now seeing more and more people who have these, learning disorders or learning difficulties, as you said, are more open and upfront about it. And I think, geez, as long as 20 years ago, which is the 1980s, it wasn't the early 2000s, just so everybody knows, it was kind of a shameful thing, and
Yeah.
people would hide stuff like that because, again, let's be honest, in the 90s and 80s, early 2000s, hearing dyslexia immediately meant, oh, that person's stupid. Not that they were running a different race at a different speed. It immediately meant,
Mhm.
oh, they're just that. But now, like,
Mhm.
people like you are bringing to light that, you're not stupid, you just learn differently. And how important is it when, I think I know what you're going to say, when we learn somebody learns different, how important is it for parents and teachers to adapt to the child's different way of learning?
Yeah, I mean, it is. And, just like you, I'm so happy and excited for that part of our society that's embracing these differences more. I mean, my grandmother used to always say normal was a setting on a washing machine, right? Like, what does normal even mean?
That is the most Texas thing I have ever heard in my entire life.
Right? I think I've lost everyone here.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
but it's true, right? Like we're all different, and our brains are different. The way we look, the way we act, our energy, everything is different. And when we recognize that and celebrate that, and just with dyslexia specifically, if you think of all the famous people, all the engineers, all the people who've done amazing things who have dyslexia, that doesn't define them. And imagine what the world would be like if they hadn't succeeded in the way that they had,
Mm,
right? But back to your
yeah.
question, Eric, I mean, if we can change how we approach teaching these kiddos, which I will, this is a whole separate conversation, but I will say the way we teach everybody to read in English is the same. The difference is the intensity. So the amount of time we're going to practice, the explicit nature that we're going to teach each individual piece, how many steps we may break it down into, that may change depending on your learner profile. But the written language works the same for everyone, right? The language doesn't change, the way we write it doesn't change. We all have the same brains, they're just wired a little differently. But yeah, anyway, back on track. But if we can get that kind of instruction into classrooms, into homes, into all these places from the very beginning, we wouldn't have all of these horrible statistics about reading that you see in the headlines, right?
I just want to say
Mm.
you touched on this a little bit. To anyone out there who has a learning disorder, me including, it does kind of give us that good chip on our shoulder where we know, hey, I'm going to have to try 10 times harder than everyone else because of this. I'm not going to let that define me. So, I have to be a better engineer, a better entertainer, teacher, or whatever to prove to everyone this one thing doesn't define me.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that's definitely for sure. I mean that's a good point because yeah, it's I guess it's just like anything else. And obviously as you grow older, you grow wiser. And at some point, I mean, we can either choose to let it define us or we define it. And we take what would, hold us back, and we use that for the greater good. And it's like you said, Eric, try harder, work smarter. Um, and it doesn't mean that you're trying to outdo the other person. It just means that you're pushing yourself in the best way possible to be the best, but to be the best person that you can become. Um, how important is it? And I know like kids, like, it's hard to try to get them to understand that, but I think when you're giving them these tools to learn, really any kid, but a child with learning disabilities, I think when you know that there's a disability and you realize that and you challenge them in a good and healthy way. What is that like? I mean, this is like a deep. This is a conversation that could go on for a long time. And I don't want to get into the weeds, or like talk for hours. But there is something to be said about being able to work with a child, work with a parent, and see them grow. Um, what does that do for the family structure when you do what you do?
Yeah. I mean, just huge impacts. I know even when I first started my private practice, I really was mostly working with the kids. And, you know, to toot my own horn, I'm really good at what I do. And so I kept getting the hard kids, the kids who'd been to this person, who'd done that, so they walk through my door and they're like, yeah, yeah, here's some lady, some other person who's supposed to help me, right? And it's called their affective filter. Basically, their emotions, their defense mechanisms, everything were sky high. They wanted nothing to do with me. But honestly, every kid, even by session number two, they're like, okay, I think she understands me. And then by the fourth or fifth session, they're like, okay, this is actually working. Maybe we're onto something. And just seeing these kids shed all of that weight and go back to being the amazing, creative, gorgeous little people that they are was just the coolest thing ever. And so seeing that ripple through the whole family, where moms and dads are basically in tears because their kid is the little kid that they remember, right? I mean, all of that goes away and they get to just be the awesome people that they are. And then getting them to see too, like, hey, I can do this.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's hard, but I can do it and I just got to keep going.
There's that
Yeah,
whole thing
yeah.
of when a kid gets addicted to success, even if it's in the littlest thing, it changes their whole outlook. I often call it finding their thing.
Hmm.
And as soon as they overcome something like dyslexia, they got that weight off of them. They realize if they put their mind to it, they can do anything they want.
Hmm.
And then it just changes everything about them. And that is one of my favorite things about working with kids. And I got to know this is what it was with me. When I would work with little kids, it was always a much easier and funner thing because I can be a total goofball. But when I was working with teenagers, I had to be cooler than 5 minutes ago. This was in the mid 2000s, so I had to know everything about MySpace. I had to know everything that was coming trend wise so they could not see me as an authority figure, but someone they could open up to. I mean, yeah, I watched so many stupid things just so I can talk to them about something. So
Yeah.
what do you find with working with teenagers and the little ones?
Yeah, I mean, very similar. So in my private practice, I see everything from really like 4 years old up through high school. And the 4 year olds, I mean, if you walk into my clinical room, I've got like toys everywhere. We're throwing things, we're jumping up and down, we're doing all
Mhm.
this fun, crazy stuff. But we're learning why we do it, and they have no idea that they're working, and that's why
Yeah.
it's beautiful. And then the high schoolers, even the middle schoolers, especially if we're talking about a learner profile with somebody who's on the spectrum, it's all about going into their interests. So I have learned so much about cricket, the Titanic, right? Like pick a
Oh my
topic. And at some
God.
point, I've had a student that was all in on
Like
that thing, and I like
hip-hop, things
became an
like that.
encyclopedia.
Wow. 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 I, 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 can people contact you? Because I feel because I think somebody that listens to our podcast knows somebody. And I think everybody kind of knows somebody. They may not realize it, but are people able to contact you
Yeah,
and
yes,
ask you
absolutely.
questions? Really?
Yeah, I do. I
Okay.
do free consultations. You can book on my website. I also, it's in my mission statement on my website. If I can't help you, I will be 100% transparent about that,
Yeah.
but I will point you in the right direction. So if you
I
don't need
love
to be
it.
talking to me, if you're not in what I call the scope of my practice, I'm going to let you know where to go next.
My goodness, my goodness. And actually your website is called leadchanges.com. Where are they, Eric?
All the
Where's the
links
links?
will be in the description if you're listening in on
Yeah.
Anchor. And when it goes up on and when and when the episode is posted, it will be on all of our social media.
That's Eric's catchphrase, by the way.
Yeah. Like
Love
if
it. I
I
love
was able
it.
to make merch for the show, that would be it. It's kind of like
That would
where
be, yeah.
Joe Rogan always says, Jamie, can you pull this up?
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I tell you, Rebecca, you I think there's a reason. Maybe no. I think I see it, but do you know that there's a reason that the people with the most difficult of the disabilities come to you? Do you see that or feel that?
I do. And this is kind of opening up a can of worms conversation wise, but I actually really, I'm quite spiritual and I believe a lot in sort of energy and energetics.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that's the energy I put out into the world, that I'm very
Yeah.
understanding, I'm very grounded, and I can help you. And so those are the families that kind of keep coming. And yeah. And I know what I'm talking about too. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is a good can of worms because I think I
Yeah.
think everybody has an energy. And you can feel it, you can definitely feel it when it's a bad energy, but you can definitely even more so feel it and realize it and see it, the good energy that comes out. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that when there's a disability, like a learning disability, it's like emotional baggage, right? Everybody, the family, the kids are wearing this. And there's that energy that they're putting out, but then all of a sudden it's like the veil is lifted. And I'm sure, and it's just what you said. By the second lesson or the session, they've come to realize that, wow, I can take this heavy weight, this heavy jacket, this heavy thing that I'm carrying around, because it's like you give them permission to be who they are. Oh gosh.
Mm.
yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, and that's all we can, that I think for all of us, right? If we can just put down the mask, drop the facade, and just be who we genuinely are, that's
Yeah.
when we can connect with other people. That's when we can make the world a better place, all the things we want to be doing.
My gosh, how do you keep it together? because I'm getting emotional just talking about this
Yeah.
stuff.
I
How
will
do
say
you
my
do it?
therapy training has been really good at disconnecting and departmentalizing, compartmentalizing.
Wow. I guess I need to learn that. I mean that it's very you're very blessed. You really
Yeah,
are.
very, very
And
much.
I mean we've kind of talked about your book. It's already out. It's on. Where can we get your book?
So
Is
it's
it on
on
Amazon?
Amazon. Yeah. If you don't
Okay.
like Amazon, you can go to it's through Penguin Random House. So they on their
Okay.
website they've got every place online that's selling it. Anywhere books are sold, you can find it.
I love that. Okay.
Awesome.
I love and obviously we'll put links in the description and things. Would you like to read? Now I finally put it in our intro letter about, pitching so it's not like caught, off guard. But would you like to read a little bit about your book
I would love to.
from
Yeah,
from your book? Okay, thank
it
you.
is. Yeah. And so actually the piece I'm going to share at the very beginning of the book, I write a letter to the parents and caregivers that are walking this
Oh,
journey with their kids. And talking about emotional, I may get emotional as I read it, but I wanted to read a piece of that letter to the parents. So it says, a transformational new chapter in your child's learning journey has just begun. Their diagnosis of dyslexia has undoubtedly unlocked a range of emotions. You may be feeling relief as you now understand why your child has been struggling to learn to read. You may be grappling with more difficult emotions like worry, overwhelm, and confusion. Rest assured, whatever you're feeling is normal. A child with dyslexia just needs the right help, and so do you.
Wow. That's a mic drop. I mean, you could have literally just had the whole book just be that on every page,
right.
and you would have made an impact on people's lives. And you do have an energy about you that could,
Yeah.
change the room when you walk into it. Even from here, I
Yeah.
can see that. And that's
Yeah.
why so many kids are drawn to you. And, we just want to thank you so, so much for coming on the show today. As we said, all of her links will be in the description. And yeah, thank you
Uh,
so much for coming on. Larry, you have anything before we
Eric,
close?
yeah, actually just one. I want and thank you, Eric, for closing. But I think Rebecca, would you, oh man, I'm getting a little emotional. Um uh would you like talk to like our listeners
Mhm.
about um uh what am I thinking? About finding yourself and listening to who you are. I don't know if this is even the right thing, but just leave our listeners with a little something that you like to tell parents and kids, ranging obviously, like teenagers or even adults about being true to themselves.
Yeah. I think I say this to parents all the time, but I think after listening to you, I need to say it to myself and say it to just about everyone. And it's to listen to your gut. Check in with your instincts, right? If we just ground ourselves for a moment and sit in the silence, we know what's right for us. So give yourself the grace and space to have that moment and then go with what feels right to you. Because we know it's in our bodies. We just need to give ourselves the opportunity to listen to what our bodies are telling us.
Mm,
Thank you. Thank you
yeah.
very much. Okay. Oh my, Eric, go ahead and close it
Well,
out.
again,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much, Rebecca, for coming on. And hey, folks, like we say each and every week, remember, support New Life Village.